For the longest time in my real estate career, we've been talking about pursuing the American dream, restoring the American dream. And I look back on 40 years and it seems like that dream has just been crushed. And the question is, are we going to ever go back to that? Or is it forever being buried? I'm Bill Gross. This is my real estate market weekly update where I get together, review the statistics on the current market, talk about the important trends in the real estate market for you as well. So as I look back over 38 years, it's amazing how hard it's become for the average American to buy a home. When I was first out of college, I got married, and then our first year of marriage, we saved and scrimped and bought a small home, and that was the American dream. And we traded up to a second home and made money on that and so on. And that's how most people got along. But somewhere along the line, that broke. And we're going to look at the fundamental reasons why now. Before we get into that, let's take a look at the market stats on where we are, because they're going to play into why the American dream, I think, is being broken. In an economy, there's two parts. There's demand and supply. Demand, primarily in real estate, is driven by interest rates. And we're going to talk about the buyer demand. And then the supply side is the amount of inventory. On the buyer side, as far as demand, rates jumped up last week. And what's amazing to me was last week also was a Jewish holiday. It was off for Thursday and Friday. And I was shocked at how little news reporting there was on the 0.5% increase in mortgage rates. It went from around 6.1 to 6.6. But for months, we've been speculating, will the Fed drop their rates? Will that change the real estate market? And all of a sudden, overnight rates did jump up, which nobody saw coming, and yet has not been reported at all. I don't think the average American consumer has seen that happen. I believe that's on purpose. It's part of the politics. They want to hide the bad news, emphasize the good news, and that's going on. So last week, the market stayed about the same, holding that 0.5% jump, closing at 6.68% on the 30-year Freddie Mac market. So that jump in rate is going to eventually hit the demand side. We're going to go into those numbers in detail. It hasn't yet, but I believe it will. I think, again, that's a post-election reality that's coming on board, and you're going to see that very soon. Now, on the supply side, which are how many homes are available for sale, that number also has been improving, but I believe is set for some transition as those rates affect it. Inventory right now is down, is up from last year by 12%, but it's still below any pre-COVID period ever. And only post-COVID is last year. And you can see last year's number, this turquoise, is still rising while this year's is declining the number of homes for sale. So I'm not sure exactly if they'll intersect, but I would say the numbers are close enough to say that we're still in a COVID basis of inventory, while we're in otherwise an after COVID market economy everywhere else. Everything else has seemed to come back to normal, if there is a normal. So the inventory still is dropping. Now, again, I think if interest rates, if that effect of 0.5% has the effect I expect, you might see in a month or two inventory rising, because buyers will stop buying some properties and sellers won't be buying the upgraded properties they otherwise were going to be buying. So we'll see how that works out. In Los Angeles, I really like a service called Altos Research that takes all the factors and gives you kind of an overall rating for the economy. LA, they rate us as a 36. Again, that's the second week in a row they've had us at that number. It's been declining overall. And so what I would say is that the market is moving slowly towards a more normal market. And you can see that when normal market might be a 30, we were in the 40s, 39, 38, 37, 36. We're at 39.7 as back as July. So it's been slowly moving towards a regular normal market in LA, still a seller's market overall. So that's, again, the local answer for where's the market today. Now let's talk about, I just think, some shocking numbers when you take a look at the American dream. So take a look at, for example, purchase applications weekly. And what you'll see is, oops, I got the wrong one there. Let's get this here. There we go. Mortgage applications have not recovered from the pre-pandemic levels. Now, this number is kind of an interesting number. It's a number relative to 1990. So 140 would be 140% of the applications in 1990, which is about where our population is. Which is another way of saying that while the economy had been getting better somewhat from 2018 to 2022, we've now returned to numbers where Americans are no better off than they were in 1990. And you might say, well, that seems odd because there seems to be so much money. We have trillion-dollar companies, we have all kinds of billionaires. But what's happened is the average American has been left behind increasingly. Those who have houses are enjoying the appreciation and the tax benefits of owning a house. Those who do not are getting crushed with the rental income. And you can see that this drop in applications recently due to the interest rate rise. And we're back to a level where we still have not recovered at all from the crash post-COVID of people looking to buy houses. Very difficult number to look at when you talk about where people are going to go. Even more troubling is take a look at the number of home sales. Home sales now are about where they were in 1995 and 1996. Yet our overall population has gone up by 40%, meaning we have 40% less homeowners on average than we had before. The more average people, 40% more average people rent rather than own. And so you can see that our home sales numbers now are about where they were they're actually lower than the worst year of the global recession of 2008 and 2009. That's how bad our home sales market is. Really, the home sales business, I'm in it as an industry, is in a depression. When you have that kind of drop in numbers of sales, it is a depression in the industry, and there's a lot to be said about that. But more importantly, for the overall average American, they're way worse off than they were in 1990. And this graph just shows it even more. And so one last, no, that was all I wanted to show on that one. Okay. So then recently you might say, how's the market been? And if you listen to the economy, everybody's saying how good it is. Weekly mortgage demand tanked 17% after the rate hikes from the 2 weeks ago. So what we see is this long-term inability of the average person to buy a house is continuing. And I believe it was masked all year, like the job numbers. If you followed that story where the government kept saying the jobs were getting better, jobs are getting better, then oops, we overestimated jobs by 1 million jobs, wiping out all the improvement. And I believe, you have a government who has thousands of people whose job it is to put together data. That's not a mistake. That's a designed activity. And same here, the interest rates aren't a surprise. They've been trying to juice the economy to create a power for the incumbents, both Democrat and Republicans. The economy is run by the incumbent government, and they're trying to stay in power, and they overstated all the good news and understated the bad news. And here's the effect is now comes time to pay the piper, and mortgage interest applications declines by 17%, which is a disastrous number. Now, meanwhile, while that's going on, you might say, well, people know that this is going on and those looking out for us are going to sound the alarm bells. Well, banks, for example, big US banks say consumers are still doing strong. They're doing great. And these companies, these people who bank international conglomerates and bank Chinese companies that destroy American jobs, they're saying, don't worry, everything's fine. These banks only exist because they use taxpayers' full faith and credit in the United States of America and borrow money against the government and then lend it to other people and make money on it. And yet when it comes time to do their job, which is to lend money to us as a group, to buy homes and to finance our education and lives, they have no interest in taking care of us. They're too busy making trillions of dollars, financing multinational conglomerates than they are to do the job they were designed to do, that we're paying them to do in essence by allowing them to use our credit. So these big banks aren't much of a help. How about teachers? Well, not only are teachers not teaching anything of personal finance, failing in that area, not only are teachers failing in America, the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic, are ranking internationally since the founding of the Department of Education. I saw the statistic. We went from the #1 of the industrialized countries to like number 29 out of 40. So our teachers are failing us, yet they have the audacity to make this claim all the time. Gee, I'm a teacher. I can't afford it. I can only afford to be a teacher because my employer covers rent. And in California, in most states and counties, we have special programs to help teachers buy homes, which, it sounds great. Who doesn't like a teacher? Well, I don't like teachers' unions. The teachers' union runs the Democratic Party in America. They're the largest group of delegates at the Democratic Convention. They run California Teachers Association. You cannot be elected statewide without their approval. They run our state. We're a one-party state, and the Teachers Party runs it. And as a result, they have really indoctrinated students instead of teaching them anything about personal finance. The quality of education has dropped, so we have an economy now with people who aren't prepared to enter the economy. And you have teachers complaining they aren't paid enough. Yet in LA, in Los Angeles, the average teacher's pay is $106,000 a year. On top of that, they get gold-plated insurance for medical. On top of that, their Social Security money isn't burned. Their Social Security money, they get to opt out of it. They gave themselves the right to pass the law to take their retirement, put it in the CalPERS program or CalSTRS program. Basically, their money gets compounded and invested to their benefit. And when teachers retire, they often retire with pensions of $2 or $3 million because that money that got invested every year over their career, compound is still there, as opposed to my money that I paid to Social Security. I'd be lucky to get back half of it, the money I paid in overtime. Yet teachers complain they're paid enough. And as a result, we have in California more and more bond programs on the election this year to raise our taxes, to pay more teachers, to have a worse economy, to have to pay more of the teachers, to then have bonds to pay the teachers more money. You see the cycle? They help destroy our economy. We have to have bonds to pay them more money. Those bonds make our economy worse. It's a never-ending cycle. And that's where we are in California today, where we have this factor that keeps the price of homes higher. The taxes make it harder and harder to buy. And that trend is increasing, not decreasing. The lack of the American dream is not close to being fulfilled. It is getting harder and worse year after year after year, to where I've been in this business 40 years. It is a long ago dream for the average American to own a home, for the average college graduate to own a home. Most have even given up on that possibility. Okay, we have a little abbreviated session today. If you notice that I haven't shaved, it's not because I'm lazy, it's because I'm in the middle of a Jewish holiday period. And so a little less time for work, more time for play with the family. But one of the news stories that did really hit me this week that I just thought was really another one of those, are they really doing this to us again? Oops, lost my spot there. And let me go back to it. Are they really doing this to us again? The answer is yes, they are. Here's when as RV camps fill neighborhoods, the new laws aimed at reducing them. Well, that sounds good. This is Yahoo News. That sounds good. And they report this in the LA Times. It's behind the LA Times paywall, so we're not going to pay for this one. Oh, that's great. We're going to get rid of them. No, well, it sounds great. So here's one of the things you need to know. If you park your car where you shouldn't, and either you have a warrant or you have numerous parking tickets and your car gets towed, there's a system where you have a penalty, and then you have to pay a penalty enough that covers not just a fine, but covers the cost of the tow company to tow and store your car. And after, I think it's about 30 days of storing your car, if you haven't recovered it, they have the right to sell it to offset the cost of storing your car. What's fascinating is, if you're some homeless person who comes here illegally, or you want to rent a drug den or prostitution parlor out of an RV, you park your car on the street and it gets towed. Well, it doesn't get towed because the city doesn't have a place to store it. And they don't have trucks to tow it. Well, of course, there are companies who'd be glad to tow those things. And of course, there's companies who'd be glad to store them and charge them an appropriate fee, after which, if they're not recovered, would sell them and that would offset the cover of the costs. The problem is, the people who run these illegal RVs get special treatment over you and me. See, when their trucks are towed, they don't pay a fine. Our new city law is we're taking taxpayer money, we're buying land, and then we're leasing it out to a government organization, hiring more government employees. Of course, they all vote for the government. And then they will rent space to these RVs for $1 a month. So instead of them parking on the street, well, that sounds great. They're running a prostitution ring or they're running a drug ring. So instead, they're going to move them into a lot and charge them $1 a month. However, what they're finding out is a couple things. One is once that drug ring or once that prostitution ring gets set up in that area, they have a customer base. So if the RV is towed to another location, they pay $1 a month. Why not? Or they don't pay the $1 a month and it sits there. But they put another RV in the same spot because that's what the business is. So it's not just that people can't afford to live anywhere else. We've now created this industry, and we've imported, not all illegal immigrants are criminals, but we've imported a lot of criminals, and a lot of crime rings are now coming in the area and establishing a corporate-like business of prostitution and drugs, and they use these RVs to do that. And now the city, rather than charge those people and make them pay a fine and sell the RV to offset the cost of that, you and I are now buying them land. They can park their property for $1 a month. Who knows how long that lasts? And of course, since the city runs it, unlikely they'll ever be sold at auction. And so what happens is once those are all filled up, there'll be more RVs on the street, and then they'll tell us they need more land. And now the government's created a new profit center for more employees and more support. So there's your tax money at work. The people who created this problem of homelessness aren't going to solve it. The only thing in the long run that solves it will be a good economy that will give people more opportunities and a legal system that allows us to enforce the laws on the books. What do you think? Am I being too harsh? I'm not being negative. I'm watching our government and calling them for what they're doing. I don't think I'm negative. But what do you think? Am I being negative? Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, subscribe, put a comment in, reply to me. I'm at Bill Gross Probate, billgrossprobate.com on the internet. As always, make today your best day ever. Thanks so much.